So this is lesson 2.7, and it'll be the first video, so we'll call it A in elementary algebra. And this particular lesson is called More Applications, or in other words, more story problems. So one of the most difficult and the key part of solving any kind of a story problem is writing out the equation. So that's what we're going to continue to be working on, and it just takes practice. Sometimes it just doesn't come for a long time, and sometimes it starts clicking. But let's start going with consecutive integers. First example that we're going to talk with is going to talk about consecutive integers, and if you look at a consecutive integer, it means that numbers that are listed like 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. It could be that I say consecutive odd integers, so it's going to be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and consecutive even integers would be just the ones that follow each other, one right after the other, the ones that are next to each other. So one of the things that we need to realize when we're talking about something like consecutive odd integers is the first number is always going to be x, if we don't know what that number is. And the next one is always going to be x plus 2, because notice what we did is let's say that our x was 3. The next one is going to be 3 plus 2, which is 5. The next one is going to be 3 plus 4. So our next one is going to be x plus 4, etc. Now let's look at the even ones. Let's say we start out with 4. Well, how do we get to 6? Well, if 4 is x, 6 would be whatever 4 or x is, which in case 4, and we're going to add 2. How do we get to 8? Well, we add 4 to our x. So 4 plus 4 is 8. How do we get to the next one? X plus 6. So it's always our original one, plus 2, plus 4, plus 6, plus 8, to give you the next list of consecutive numbers there. So let's go ahead and try one or something. Well, try a bunch of these. And if you look at the top of page 156, it gives you in words or using algebra what those are. So if you look at consecutive integers, it's x plus 1. If you look at consecutive odd or consecutive even, they both, whether it's odd or even, uses x as the first one. So if this is even, and this is odd, and the next one is going to be x plus 2, and this one will be x plus 2. And then x plus 4, and this one will be x plus 4. It's always the same, so it doesn't matter if you're finding even or odd, the three numbers are going to be the same like that. It's just what number you start with. If you start with an even number, you may start with the number 6. Whereas if you start with an odd one, it's going to be starting with number 5. But when you add 2 to it, it's also going to give you an odd number. 5 plus 2 is 7. 5 plus 4 is 9. So every time you add 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to an odd number, you're going to get an odd number. If you add 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to an even number, you're going to get an even number. And I just kind of keep harping on that because students get those mixed up. They think if you're going to go from an odd number of x to get to the next one, you're going to have to add an odd number. But that isn't the case, because if this is 3, then this one is 4, and that is not an odd number. So it has to be x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6, etc. Alright, example 1. The sum of two consecutive odd integers is 28. Well, let's write our two consecutive odd integers. Doesn't matter what x is, if we add 2 to it, it's going to give us the next odd number, because our x is odd. And when we add those up, it says the sum equals 28. So find the two integers. Well, we just add those together. 2x plus 2 equals 28. Subtract 2, 2x equals 26. Divide by 2, x equals 13. So that's my first number. What's my second number? Well, we said it's x plus 2, so it's going to be, this is 13, this is going to be 15. So those are my two, and when I add them up, I get 28. All right, so let's look at some interest problems. Interest meaning the amount of money the bank pays you to keep your money in the bank. And we're going to use a real simple formula. And it's, I don't know if that even has a name for it, but we're going to use the formula interest equals rate times principal. And what that means is the amount of money you're going to make off of the money you put in the bank is going to be the rate, which is always going to be a percent, times how much money you put in the bank. So let's say you put $1,000 in the bank. So if you put $1,000 in the bank, you multiply it by 8%, you're going to make money off of that. The bank is going to pay you interest. And in this case, 8% times 1,000 is going to be $80. So you're going to put that money in the bank, and you're going to make $80 every year when you check your account. All right, so probably one of the most important things you need to remember as far as percent is concerned is when you're doing math, you never use percent with your math. When you're solving an equation, you do not multiply 8% times 1,000. You can't multiply a percent. You have to change the percent to a decimal. So 8% is really 8.0, right? So to make it into a decimal, we move the decimal 2 places over and take the percent off. So it becomes 0.08. If we're talking 30%, we move the decimal from here 1, 2. So it's actually 0.3. So you always move the decimal 2 place values when you want to change it from a percent to a decimal. All right, so let's look at example number 2. Suppose you invest a certain amount of money in an account that earns 8% in annual interest. So that's my rate. Whenever it's in percent, that's your rate. At the same time, you invest $2,000 more than that in an account that pays 9%. So you've put money in 2 different accounts. You've put a certain amount of money, so let's call it X. So that's the money you invest at 8%. And then it says you put another amount, and that amount is $2,000 more than what you put in the first one. So $2,000 plus X dollars you invest at 9%. So you've got 2 different accounts that pay 2 different interest rates, and you put 2 different amounts in there. If the total interest from both accounts at the end of the year is $690, so you put X in the bank at 8%, and you get a certain amount of interest. You put $2,000 plus X amount in an account that pays 9%, and you get interest there. So remember the formula I put, I equals RP, and this is also I equals RP. So we did it, we put money in this one, and we put money in this one, and when we add them up at the end of the year, what's it say? We have $690. The bank paid you $690 to put your money in their bank. And that's what interest is, how much money you made off of that. So all of that information is going to help us solve this. All right, so let's make a little table here. And tables are always very helpful. So we've got how much money we invested. So this is our principal. That's the money put in. And how much would we do it at 8%? We put X in. How much did we put in at 9%? We said we had X, but it said we put $2,000 more in, so X plus 2,000. All right. And let's see, how much interest did we make? Interest equals the rate times the principal. So at 8%, we had 8% times X, because that's our principal there. And the other one we did at 9% times X plus 200, or 2,000. So remember, before we do the math, we have to change our percentages to decimals. So let's make it 0.08 x 0.09 x plus 2,000. Okay, so if we use our I equals RP, it'll tell us how much interest we made off of this and off of this, because this is our RP and this is our RP. So if we add those two together, what did it say? We would get $690. So 0.08 x plus 0.09 times x plus 2,000 equals $690. So there's our equation. This is the part that seems to be the hardest to come up with. Alright, so let's use that equation and see what we can do here. In fact, let's get rid of all this junk now that we have our equation written. We'll bring that up. Alright, so let's multiply 0.08x plus, and now we're going to distribute, and then we're going to multiply that times 2,000. So 0.09 times 2,000, if you have your calculator, is going to give you 180, and that equals 690. So we can combine these two because they both have x's. So 0.08 plus 0.09 is 0.17x. We're going to subtract 180 because, again, see, we're trying to find what x equals, so we have to get rid of everything. 690 minus 180 is 510. Now we take our calculator and we take 510 divided by 17, and we find out that x equals 3,000. Now what does that mean? Well, that means that we invested, if you look back at your notes, I've already erased everything, that we invested $3,000 at 8%. Now how much did we invest at 9%? Well, we said that at 9% we invested this amount plus an additional 2,000. So 3,000 plus 2,000 is 5,000. So we invested 3,000 at 8% and 5,000 at 9%. So that gives us our final answer. It says how much is invested in each account. Right there is the answer that they wanted.